Section 4. Safety margins. By how much can stopping distances increase in icy conditions? 10 times. In windy conditions, which activity requires extra care? Passing pedal cyclists. When approaching a right-hand bend, you should keep well to the left. Why is this? To improve your view of the road. You've just gone through deep water. What should you do to make sure your brakes are working properly? Go slowly while gently applying the brakes. In very hot weather, the road surface can become soft. What will this affect? The tyre grip. Where are you most likely to be affected by side winds? On an open stretch of road. In good conditions, what's the typical stopping distance at 70 miles per hour? 96 meters, which is 315 feet. What's the shortest overall stopping distance on a dry road at 60 miles per hour? 73 meters, 240 feet. You're following a vehicle at a safe distance on a wet road. Another driver overtakes you and pulls into the gap you've left. What should you do? Drop back to regain a safe distance. You're travelling at 50 miles per hour on a good dry road. What's your typical overall stopping distance? 53 meters, 175 feet. You're on a good dry road surface. Your brakes and tyres are good. What's the typical overall stopping distance at 40 miles per hour? 36 meters, 118 feet. What should you do when overtaking a motorcyclist in strong winds? Pass wide. Overall stopping distance is made up of thinking distance and braking distance. You're on a good dry road surface with good brakes and tyres. What's the typical braking distance from 50 miles per hour? 38 meters or 125 feet. In heavy motorway traffic, the vehicle behind you is following too closely. How can you lower the risk of collision? Increase your distance from the vehicle in front. You're following other vehicles in fog. You have your lights on. What else can you do to reduce the chances of being in a collision? Reduce your speed and increase the gap in front. You're using a contraflow system. What should you do? Choose an appropriate lane in good time. You're driving on an icy road. How can you avoid wheel spin? Drive at a slow speed in as high a gear as possible. What's the main cause of skidding? The driver. You're driving in freezing conditions. What should you do when approaching a sharp bend? Slow down before you reach the bend. You're turning left on a slippery road. What should you do if the back of your vehicle slides to the right? Steer carefully to the right. What should you clear of ice and snow before starting a journey in freezing weather? The windows. What will help you when you're trying to move off on snow? Use a higher gear than normal. What should you do when you're driving in snowy conditions? Brake gently in plenty of time. What's the main benefit of driving a four-wheel drive vehicle? Improved grip on the road. You're about to go down a steep hill. What should you do to control the speed of your vehicle? Select a low gear and use the brakes carefully. What should you do when parking your vehicle facing downhill? Turn the steering wheel towards the curb. You're driving in a built-up area that has traffic calming measures. What should you do when you approach a road hump? Check your mirror and slow down. Anti-lock brakes reduce the chances of skidding. When is this particularly important? When you're braking in an emergency. On what type of road surface may anti-lock brakes not work effectively? Loose. When are anti-lock brakes of most use to you? When you're braking harshly. What does driving a vehicle with anti-lock brakes allow you to do? Steer and brake harshly at the same time. You're driving a vehicle that has anti-lock brakes. How should you apply the foot brake when you need to stop in an emergency? Rapidly and firmly. In which conditions are your anti-lock brakes most unlikely to prevent skidding on loose road surfaces? You're driving along a country road. You see this sign. What should you do after dealing safely with the hazard, which is a red triangle with a Ford in it? Test your brakes. What would suggest you're driving on ice? There's less tyre noise. You're driving along a wet road. How can you tell if your vehicle's tyres are losing their grip on the surface? The steering will feel very light. In which conditions will your overall stopping distance increase? In the rain. You're driving on an open road in dry weather. What should the distance be between you and the vehicle in front? A 2-second time gap. How can you use your vehicle's engine as a brake? By changing to a lower gear. When are anti-lock brakes ABS most effective? When you brake promptly and firmly until you've stopped. When will anti-lock brakes take effect? When the wheels are about to lock. You're driving on a wet motorway with surface spray. What lights should you use? Dipped headlights. What can result when you travel for long distances in neutral, known as coasting? Reduction in control. What should you do when driving in fog? Allow more time for your journey. Now, the case study in safety margins. You have a short but essential journey to make. It's early morning and the roads are icy in places. It's very cold and snow is falling. Your tyres are making almost no sound. On turning left, the back of your vehicle slides a little to the right. Further on, there's a slow-moving vehicle spreading salt on the road. What should you do in such weather conditions? Allow more time. How should you brake under the conditions described? Gently and slowly. What does the lack of tyre noise indicate? The road could be icy. What should you do in the skid described? Steer gently to the right. What colour beacon would this slow-moving vehicle have? Amber. And so ends section 4.